Okay, we're starting back into Luke 21. We began it last time, and leading into this, the real section really begins in verse 5 that we'll be taking on. But before that, we have a setup to it, and that is Jesus at the temple. He's had the confrontations with the scribes, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, all his enemies. He has put them to shame as they've tried to trap him every chance they get. And then he gives the great warning to them: beware of the scribes. And again, who were the scribes of that day?
The
Who are these
They
people?
Pharisees.
were the lawmakers.
Yeah, these are the Pharisees, the scribes, the Pharisees, the lawyers, the experts in the law, the teachers of Israel. These are the ones who were really the ones responsible for the biblical education of the people. They were the religious leaders and teachers. And he's warning them, beware of them. And what does he say about them? If you remember, um,
They like to walk around in long robes and get the
yep,
best seats.
And give
yep,
loving greetings, all
yep.
lip service.
They love all the attention. They are highly respected. They sit in the seats of honor. People greet them. They wear their robes that are long, and they're honored at all their feasts. But meanwhile,
They will receive the greater condemnation.
why? What are they doing?
They're faking it.
They devour widows' houses.
Yeah, they devour widows' houses. They take advantage of the most vulnerable among them. And for a pretense, they make long prayers. And that idea of a pretense. What does a pretense mean?
It's like people are looking on and they just keep rambling to make themselves look good.
Yeah, it's a little bit more sinister than that. A
It's like,
pretense.
isn't it like pretense? Isn't that a form of pretend?
Yes.
Yes,
So
yes. It's a they're not real prayers. They are pretending to be religious. They're not really praying. They are making long prayers for show. They're pretending. Uh,
Right. Yeah.
yeah. So it's not so much that they're like the pagans. This is the difference between their prayers and the pagan prayers. The pagans are sincere in their prayers. They're actually praying to their gods. And Jesus says, don't be like them. They think they're going to be heard for their many words. These guys, they don't think they're going to be heard because they don't even believe that God is, they don't care in a sense if God hears their prayers. Their prayers are not for God's ears, they're for the ears of people to be impressed with them. So there is no longing. They're not really seeking God, and there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that, and I mentioned before many times before, but the whole concept that is shocking to people, the number of clergy even today who don't believe in God. They are flat out atheists, but they serve as pastors of churches. And there's a lot more than you think they are. It's shocking for folks to hear this, but it's the truth. There are a lot of pastors out there, and they see it as we're helping people, we're doing a kind service for them, we're putting on a show.
Mm.
You look, you go to the theater, right? And the theater makes you feel good, lets you escape the troubles of this life. We're just doing a form of theater. We're doing it in your churches. It's a pretty sinister thing, and that was happening at that time. It's happened at all times. Um,
When I
and
was
so the
watching the video from last week and you were talking about how they were taking advantage of the widows,
Yeah,
the thing I didn't hear, and I think is true, back then, if a widow, if a woman became a widow and she didn't have a son, wasn't it true that they couldn't own property? Couldn't a woman own property?
it's possibly true. I don't know specifically if that's the case or not, but it might very well be true. I couldn't tell you
Okay.
offhand. But that be something to look into.
Yeah,
But
I,
yeah, they're
I think
vulnerable.
Bob is right. I think I remember something of that in
Yeah.
the old law.
Yeah, I know that was a big thing in the Jane Austen novels, if you remember, where when the father they always had when the all girls in the family and the property was going to go to their cousin because the girls weren't allowed to own it, they weren't allowed to inherit it, so all the inheritance had to go to their first cousin. If you remember that, that was I think in one of the was it Sense and Sensibility or Pride and Prejudice, one of those novels back in England. Um, but in any case, the widows, however this works out, I don't know the specifics, but they're particularly vulnerable and they have no why do they target the widows?
Because they're
They're
weak.
defenseless.
Yeah, because they can get away with it. There's no one going to stand up for them and defend them. No one.
People still do that to elderly people.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly right. So many of the scam artists, they really are. They're hoping that they'll find folks who have a little bit of Alzheimer's, a little bit of dementia, that they can easily manipulate. And you wonder, you get these scam callers calling you up, and you're like, that's pretty brash. I mean, they're just telling me I need my computer fixed or whatever it is, and I need to go to this place, and you can tell in a second they're frauds. And but they're not calling for you particularly. They're targeting anybody who might be a little bit lost or confused. That's all it takes. And if they make 100 calls, if just 1 in 100 is willing to write them a check or send them, and we've had people scammed. We've had many people scammed, and so any case, but that's the scandal about this is not that the scamming happens; it's who is doing the scamming. It's their pastors, it's their teachers. And like I said,
They're
just imagine,
scribes, right?
yeah, just imagine that you're a widow and you have no one in your family there that can really plead your case, and so you go to your pastor, your rabbi. Help me, rabbi. And he says, absolutely, I'll help you. And then you find out later on when it's too late that he's the one who's been ripping you off. I mean,
Yeah.
it's outrageous. So, and that's what we saw in the next scene as Jesus observes again, they're in the temple and all these people are giving their gifts, and there's a poor widow putting in 2 small copper coins, and Jesus telling his disciples she put in all that she had to live on. And so she comes in there. So you see a couple things, lessons of that. One is Jesus sees her, and her putting in those 2 pennies was more than all the others because it came from faith. She really is trusting. But you leave there also outraged that a poor widow would come into the temple and leave poorer than when she came in. This is a place where she should be taken care of. This is a place where those who had all that extra wealth should be thinking of her and taking care of her, and they're not. And she's just putting in and leaving. So that's where we are. So now we come to the sort of the judgment scene now, where Jesus is going to lay out what's to come of this city, what's to come of this temple, and of this generation. So let's take a look at that. Verses 5 to 9. Bob Thomas, would you get that for us?
Sure.
21 verses 5 to 9.
And while some were speaking of the temple, how it was adorned with noble stones and offerings, he said, as for these things that you see, the day will come when there will not be left here one stone upon another, and that will not be thrown down. And they asked him, Teacher, when will these things be? And what will be the sign when these things are about to take place? And he said, see that you are not led astray. For many will come in my name, saying, I am he, and the time is at hand. Do not go after them. And when you hear of wars and tumults, do not be terrified, for these things must take place, but the end will not be at once.
Okay. So now they turn and some people are speaking about the temple. What are they saying about the temple, verse 5 here?
Beautiful.
About how it's adorned and probably
Yes.
how gaudy it is.
Yeah, adorned with noble stones and offerings. And I remember when we visited Israel, there was we were able to go underneath. They had opened up some tunnels recently excavated. You could go underneath and see some of the foundation stones for Herod's Temple Mount. And one of them, this enormous block, and it was so perfectly cut. And this is a foundation stone. It wasn't even like one of the stones that you would see necessarily. And it was so perfectly cut and set up. You could barely fit a credit card through the space between that and the next stone. It's a majestic work, and again, this is 2,000 years after the temple was built, and so this is the second temple. If you remember, the first temple was destroyed. Solomon's temple. Remember what year Solomon's temple was destroyed? You remember? Very important date.
605.
Close. Yeah, a little bit after that. 586. 605 is when they begin the exile of that, but 586 is when Nebuchadnezzar destroys the first temple, Solomon's temple. And then it's after about 70 years, the people are allowed to go back into the land. I think, is it under Ezra? I think it's under Ezra. And they go back in, and Joshua and Zerubbabel go in, and they rebuild the temple. So this is the second temple. So that's around like 530, I think it is, BC. Well, that's all fine. The second temple is not as glorious as the first one until Herod gets funded by the Romans, and he renovates the temple. So if you remember when Jesus says, destroy this temple and I'll rebuild it in 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, it's taken us, 37 years to build this temple. And and they were referencing those 37 years where Herod is renovating and really building up and making a glorious, not just one building, but many buildings, just a glorious complex of buildings at that time. So it's just, they really are remarkable buildings here. These are not just huts. They're not simple. They're not like the tabernacle. It's not even beyond what Solomon had put together. These are some pretty impressive buildings.
My notes state they constituted an unimaginable collection of wealth. All these riches were looted by the Romans when the temple was destroyed.
Yeah. Remarkable building.
Herod himself sent in a 6-foot tall golden cluster of grapes and a gold vine.
And that's why Herod, as corrupt as he was, had a lot of followers in Israel at that time. The Herodians. They were his supporters because he really exalted the temple and made the place look great. And again, that contrast of this gaudy, I wouldn't say gaudy, but this wealth, overwhelming wealth and prosperity of this spot, and yet you have a poor widow being abused and neglected, who's not some, beggar off the street widow, not some, sinful woman who's ruined her life, and she deserves it. Maybe, and maybe she should just, reform herself, and then we'll take care of her. But this is a widow who is just, by all means, is a woman of faith, and has been a good, devout Jew. And she's just suffered greatly. And so it's unforgivable. It's absolutely unforgivable, the way what they're dealing. So they're making comments now of the temple and how great it is. And then Jesus makes a prophecy here. And what does he say is going to happen?
Not one stone will be left on another.
Yes. Not one stone. What does he now? Again, Jesus, when he speaks, will not be left on another. Often uses hyperbole. You know what hyperbole is?
Yeah.
That term?
Intentional exaggeration to make a point.
It's an exaggeration to make a point. For the millionth time, I've asked you to stop doing that. No, you didn't actually say it a million times. But you said it a lot. But the point here is, what does he mean? Not one stone will be left upon another.
It's going to be destroyed.
Yeah, it's absolute destruction. It's not a case where this building can be rebuilt. You've seen buildings harmed, destroyed or battered or crumbled, but you can you can kind of rebuild some of it, and you can save some of it and rebuild it. It's absolutely destroyed. It's gone. It really is. It's like the this scene just reminds me so much of the of 9/11 and the Twin Towers coming down. These incredible structures, and if he would have prophesied in 1990, you see those buildings in just a few years, there's not going to be one stone left upon another, if you will, not one. It's going to be completely destroyed. It's a shocking thought. We would have never believed in a million years that could have happened. I mean, we could see them being damaged. We could see them being, like if they did have a bomb. Remember, there was a bomb attack in the Twin Towers before in the 90s.
Yeah.
We could see some damage and maybe structural damage and maybe, but the idea that they would fall completely and they would be just empty spaces there is unthinkable, unimaginable and you could, who could even do, and that they could be without a nuclear bomb and the rest of New York City is fine, but those buildings are coming down. That's just, how in the world is that going to happen? Can't even imagine it. Here, Jesus says something that is unthinkable, that the most incredible buildings they have ever seen, because these guys haven't traveled to Rome. They're fishermen here. These guys are hanging in this area. They've never seen anything like it. Even the Romans were impressed with the Temple Mount and these buildings. They were spectacular. And it says they're coming down, and not one stone another. Absolute destruction. Shocking. Not just because they are the glorious buildings, but what else is shocking about them coming down? Not just because they're so big and beautiful.
I mean, the way they're built, I mean, it's not like you're just going to knock it over with something. It's going to take some work to take that down.
Yeah, and they don't have bombs.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't have, they don't have dynamite. They don't have bombs to drop on it. It's going to take a lot of intensive labor to bring this thing down. How in the world is that going to happen? And who would want to do that? Who would want to bother with all that? That's a lot of energy expended to destroy something. Why would you want to do that? That's what's so shocking about it. Not just that I could understand, an army coming in and taking possession of it, killing everybody, but why would you take it down? Why? I mean, these are incredible structures here. Why would you destroy them like that? And
Not just rename it.
yeah. Why you would think what would make more sense is if the Romans came in and they converted it into a temple to Zeus and made it that's what Antiochus Epiphanes did back in the 160 BC. He came in and he turned the temple into a temple to Zeus, put idols in there and sacrificed pigs. Why not do something like that? Why destroy it? And furthermore, this is the temple of God. This is the house of the Lord. Why would God allow this temple to be destroyed? Why would it happen like this?
Because he's leaving.
Yeah. This is Judgment Day. And that's important to get. This is Judgment Day. And we know, of course, you should know by now, what year did this happen? That everything came down?
Is it 70?
70 AD is when it happened. So, and that's what they're going to ask him now. Teacher, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of these things that are about to take place? So they want to know. Here's the question is, when will this happen? And when is it about to happen? They want to know because they need to be ready for this when it comes. And so the first thing Jesus says to them, the first warning he gives in verse 8.
Don't be led astray.
Yeah. Don't be led astray.
This is pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm. Well, what does he say about led astray by whom?
Many
People that are saying that they're him.
Yes. We'll say this. Don't be led astray by false Christs. And I want to talk a little bit about that. What is a false Christ? It's different from a false prophet. And you know the difference between a false
Saviors.
saviors? Yes. So a Christ is a anointed, militaristic leader, a king, someone who is going to lead us to victory. He's not a false prophet, a false teacher. Those are guys that are teaching lies, deceiving the people. These are not teachers necessarily. They're military leaders. That's what they were expecting. And the Jews are still expecting that today. They're still expecting the Christ to come as a military leader who will lead Israel back into prominence once again, will defeat their enemies and set up their kingdom once again. There's this anticipation. That was the expectation. That's why Christ, Jesus, when he comes, does not meet their expectation. He, for all his miracles and wonders, he never conquers any territory. He doesn't take a city. He doesn't change the rules. He doesn't take possession of any land. And that's why he says at the end, remember what he says to Pilate, my kingdom
Is not of this earth.
not of this world. I am a king, but not of like this world. I have a different kind of kingdom. The day will come when he will take possession of all the land.
Mhm.
But right now it's a spiritual kingdom. But they were expecting someone to come now and take the land. And that's why when they were so disappointed and they wanted to get rid of him at that point, when they're like, he's not taking land. He's not doing what we're expecting of a Messiah.
They expected him to do something physically obvious, and what he's doing is trying to save us.
Yes, he's on a spiritual quest to make, and not just to save the Jews, but to save the Gentiles and their enemies too. He's not there to kill their enemies. He's there to save them as well. So he warns them, don't be led astray, because there are going to be many false Christs arising. And that's true. In that time, there were many who led revolts, who claimed to be the next Messiah, the Savior, who's going to lead us to victory. And these guys, they would basically, the way it worked out is a charismatic leader would rise up. He would lead a rebellion in a city or a town and take possession of the town or the city. And that would start a movement, and people were like, he's the guy. That's our guy. That's our leader. And many would rally to him. And then the Romans would come in and crush them and crucify them all. And then that would suppress the rebellion for a moment until another one rose up and said, no, I'm the one who did that. So if you remember, I think in the book of Acts, if you remember, Gamaliel mentions a couple of these guys who rose up at that time and started rebellions, but were shut down. So don't be led astray by these false Christs. There's going to be many that are going to say, I am he, or now is the time. Don't go after them. So he warns that first. And I think that's a good warning for us today as well. Don't go after some hero, someone who is going to lead some political movement. Because one thing about politics you may have noticed is that it's transient. There's no such thing as a permanent political situation here. You're always a back and forth. It's like playing ping pong here, back and forth between the leaders. 1 minute your team's on top and everything's going your way. The next minute the enemy's on top and they're making your life miserable, and then you win back, and then you lose, and you win, and you lose. It's always that way. Don't go after them. That's not the answer. And then he starts to say the first signs, if you will. But the end is not yet. What are the first signs? Verse 9.
Wars and tumults.
Wars and tumults. What are tumults?
Like when people fight and stuff.
Yeah, skirmishes, right? The little skirmishes, fights, if you will. All kinds of trouble. You're going to hear of wars and tumults. There's going to be all kinds of trouble all around. And that's, again, very important for that time. because they have been living under the peace of Rome. You may have heard of the Pax Romana, the peace of Rome, that Rome had such a control over the civilized world that there was peace. I mean, typically people are peaceful because they don't dare rebel against the Romans. And they had such a control of things, but a time is coming when their control of the world is going to be loosened. And there's going to be lots of wars and rumors of wars and tumults and all kinds of skirmishes and fights going on. Think it's going to be looking a lot more chaotic out there. You're going to hear about these things too. You're going to hear about wars that are happening throughout the empire. You know, you're living in Israel right now, but you're going to hear about trouble in Greece. You're going to hear trouble about in some of these other parts of the Roman Empire, and African parts and European parts. You're going to hear about troubles. And that's exactly what happened through a series of really bad leadership, culminating in Nero, who came to power in the 60s. Rome was in chaos. It became, people hated Nero and the
Isn't Nero
rebellion.
Caligula?
What's that?
Wasn't Nero Caligula?
No, Caligula is a different emperor. He's before Nero. But yeah, he was horrific.
Horrible.
Yeah. Nero was worse, these guys, but they were just the worst. Decadent, depraved, violent, just sadistic men. And they were not popular with the people. And so there was a lot of rebellions that had to be dealing with here. And what happens with these kind of guys is when they start losing control, that's when they become particularly aggressive and oppressive. When they fear things are getting out of control, then they really put up the heat. And if you remember what happened in Rome did anyone know when the fires of Rome were? What year that was? I can't remember. The Great Fire. In the 60s sometime, there was the Great Fire in Rome, destroyed the city. And there were rumors going, and I think fairly founded, that Nero had planned to burn Rome.
Yeah, Nero played the fiddle when Rome burned down.
Yeah, because he wanted to rebuild it. He had plans for no longer Rome, but Neropolis. His plan was to make a new city after himself. And so people started being very suspicious of him. And so he blamed the Christians for this. They were the terrorists. And so the Christians were a peculiar minority in Rome at that time. And so he blames them. And then he starts the great persecution of the Christians, throwing them to the lions, burning them at the stake, crucifying them, just really going after them. It was pretty awful time. But that's in the 60s. And then things got so bad, if you remember, Nero commits suicide at the end. He kills himself. Rome is in chaos. It's an insane time. That's all in the 60s now. Before, remember the date we're pushing toward is 70 AD. This is all before then. All this kind of troubles are happening. So, all right, but don't be terrified. These things must first take place. So you're going to hear all these kind of wars and skirmishes and troubles everywhere. Don't freak out. Don't be terrified. This has to happen. The end is not yet, but it is coming. So let's see what happens.
You got a little typo there, Pastor, on the right, just so you know. Don't be led astray by false Christ.
By false.
Yeah, right there.
Thank you. Okay, good. All right, let's do our next section here, verses 10. I'm going to start a new page so we can see the whole thing. Whoops. What'd I do? Got too many things going on here. All right, let's see. Layout. Here, boom. And break. All right, we're going to start a new page here. So let's read that next section here. Jack, would you want to read this for us? Verses 10 to 19.
Then he said to them, nations will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be great earthquakes, and in various places famines and pestilences, and there will be terrors and great signs from heaven. But before all this, they will lay up their hands on you and prosecute you, delivering you up to the synagogues and prisons, and you will be brought before kings and governors for my name's sake. This will be your opportunity to bear witness. Settle it therefore in your minds not to meditate beforehand how to answer. For I will give you the mouth and wisdom which none of your adversaries will be able to withstand or contradict. You will be delivered up even by parents and brothers and relatives and friends, and some of you they will put to death. You will be hated by all for my name's sake, but not a hair on your head will perish. By your endurance, you will gain your lives.
All right. So phase 2 here. This is go back up here. So this is the first signs. So the next, call these the next signs that are leading up to it. Now things are getting a little hotter here. What's going on? First thing,
Earthquakes.
even before that,
Oh, nation will rise against nation.
yes, look, we call this civil wars, if you will. These are nations within the kingdom within the empire are going to rise up within the empire, kingdom against kingdom. So up here, you're going to hear of rumors of wars and tumults. You're going to hear about these things. Some of them might be true. Some of them might not be true. You're just going to hear about this stuff. A lot of talk, a lot of things going on. But now you're going to see there will be nations rising against nations. There'll be civil wars. There'll also be what else? The next thing, there's 3 things he mentions here.
Earthquakes.
Yeah, great earthquakes,
Famines.
famines,
And pestilence.
pestilences. All right. I want to see what the historical record is. I know, for example, that there were famines at that time. We know that if you remember in the book of Acts, where Paul is collecting for the church in Jerusalem because they're dealing with famines there. I wanted to see if I can find some of these. This is chapter 21. I want to look at my notes here, see if there's any mention of specific events. Nation will rise up against nation. Okay.
This all sounds like present day.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say. Our country is against itself in many
Mhm.
times.
Yeah, these kind of things happen kind of leading up into times of judgment. You see this where there are, great earthquakes and famines and pestilences. These are even like the earthquakes. When did in the New Testament, when do you see an earthquake happening? There's actually a particular moment where there is an earthquake mentioned.
When Jesus is crucified.
Yes. At the cross.
And it's ripped from top to bottom.
Mhm.
And it talks about a great earthquake in Revelation.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so earthquakes are really like the earth is shaken. This is a sign of judgment. You see that. You see it also in the Old Testament, I think in like at Sinai, when God comes, that everything shakes. Famines also, like they went through the one
Joseph.
in Joseph's time. That's right. Also in the book of Acts, there are mentions of these famines. Famines are signs also of judgment. Pestilences is also, if you remember, where have we seen plagues happening?
Egypt.
When they hardened Pharaoh's heart.
Yeah, like the plagues in Egypt. These are different signs and warnings of judgment. They're not the final judgment. You're going to see that where these are ways in which God humbles the people and gives them warnings of coming judgment. And so he says, before this happens, you're gonna experience these signs. You're gonna deal with this stuff. And I know for a fact that all these things did happen in that first century. They're happening today, as they've always been throughout history.
Mhm.
At different times. These are the kind of events that turn our attention to the heavens. Because you realize, especially like when I don't even want to think about it again, but going back to COVID-19 and just the sense of helplessness, the sense of what are we dealing with here? Something a plague coming upon us. That
On
was
9/11,
terrifying.
everyone went back to the churches.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know,
Mm.
and some of these signs, I remember like some of those the earthquakes. Remember the earth, was it in the 90s when they had that great earthquake in that killed a couple hundred people in LA, or was it San Francisco? And I remember the scene, it still haunts me, of that twofold the two-tiered highway that collapsed and just completely crushed all the cars beneath it, and
I remember
horrifying.
that.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Horrifying stuff, and you're so helpless when you think about it, of these kind of travesties that happen. They're just reminders of all our life, especially you can imagine, especially the people who are dwelling in Jerusalem, in this glorious city. You're on top of the world. You feel like you're in control. You feel, you have wealth, you've got power, you've got strength, you feel in control. But there's nothing like an earthquake, a famine, a pestilence that just completely breaks that delusion and helps you realize just we are dust. We are dust.
Yeah.
So we really feel that. So these things, it's almost like God has been preserving us, and then he sort of just removes his hand, and all these kind of terrors alive, and there'll even be terrors and great signs from heaven. What kind of signs from heaven? Like, where have we seen signs from heaven?
Like the meteor storms of Sodom and Gomorrah.
You got that. That's a pretty big sign from heaven, the fire and sulfur. Like Sodom. But what was what happened? What was a sign from heaven that happened in the New Testament?
After he died, didn't the whole sky go dark
Yes.
for like hours
Yep.
at lunchtime or something?
Yes.
The
If you
earth-
remember, from
the
noon
earth
to
broke.
3, the darkness at noon at the cross. If you remember,
And the earthquake.
the earthquake, these heavenly signs. Oftentimes eclipses. They would have, or even in the book of Luke, you had heavenly signs in the. No, that's not in Matthew's gospel. The heavenly sign, the star, remember, moving across and the wise men following the star to where Jesus lay. So there are often heavenly signs of things happening here. So there's going to be lots of stuff happening here. But before that, before all this, before all these terrors, what is going to happen? Verse 12, before any of these things, before these earthquakes and terrors and famines and pestilences happen, what is going to happen? What can you expect?
We're
We'll
gonna
be persecuted.
You will be persecuted. And who will be doing the persecuting?
the Pharisees.
Kings and
Yes.
governors.
Unbelievers.
Yeah, you'll notice the first thing he says, in the synagogues, which means
Mhm.
who is doing that?
The
The
Pharisees.
Pharisees and the scribes.
Yeah, the Jewish rulers, right? Their own people are going to be persecuting you here, and taking you to prisons. Then you'll be brought before kings. Who are the kings? Governors.
The rulers.
Roman kings.
Yeah, these are the Romans, right? The Roman rulers. So it's like basically that's pretty much their persecution is coming from two main sources: the Jewish rulers, they're considered apostates as Jews who've now embraced a false Messiah in their minds and are worshiping a false god. So their own people are kicking them out and of their synagogues and even killing some of them, like Stephen.
This is how important it is to him that we spread the word. This
Yeah.
will be your opportunity to bear witness.
Yes.
You may give your life to bear witness. That's how important it is that we
Yeah.
follow that and we do our best to speak on his behalf.
Yeah, let's talk about that verse here. He says, this will be your opportunity to bear witness. I want to say, I have a very, when he says to these disciples to bear witness, remember in Acts, he says, you will be my witnesses.
Mhm.
What does that mean, to be Jesus' witness.
To tell the gospel?
Yes, specifically, what is a witness?
Someone who's
Someone who's
on
seen
your
something.
behalf.
Yeah.
He's
Someone
seen
that
something, right?
testifies to it.
And testifies. They will bear witness. What have they seen that they are testifying to?
The death
Jesus.
and resurrection of Jesus.
Yes. They will testify to what they have seen, which is, I'll say there are three main things. You mentioned his death, his resurrection, and what else will they see?
Ascension.
His ascension. So this is where we use the terms for ourselves oftentimes of witnessing, but we don't mean it properly. We really mean is telling people the gospel or sharing our story. But what Jesus means here is they are witnessing what they've actually seen, which is they saw him die on the cross.
Yeah, they
They
actually
saw him.
saw it physically.
Yeah, and they
Like,
saw
we
him
believe
rise.
it.
And we believe
Mhm.
in Christ because of their testimony. They are the ones on the stand testifying to these events. And they're going to be bearing witness to all the nations. And who did use this as an opportunity? Who was dragged before kings and governors and bore witness to Christ?
Paul.
Paul. That was his whole story in the book of Acts, is he's being dragged before kings and authorities and rulers and constantly bearing witness to what he has seen. He saw the resurrected Christ, and he tells that story. That story of his conversion is of his encounter with the risen Lord is told not once but 3 times in the book of Acts, as Paul is testifying again and again to what he experienced, what he saw.
That would be a great book for our next book.
There you go. Maybe we'll do that. Well, we're doing that with the men on Tuesday, so we'll have to figure that out. But in any case, this is your opportunity to bear witness now. You know, when we talk about our witnessing, that's important to get. So when we share the gospel, we're not telling our story. We're telling the story, what the apostles, we're passing along their testimony, if you will, when we share the gospel. That's what saves people, not our personal story, but what they saw, and that is what saves us. That the cross, the resurrection, the ascension. Absolutely. And I love this because it's like in the midst of all this chaos, this is their moment, this is their time to spread the gospel, to bring the gospel to the ends of the earth. And it's true that the amount, how quickly the gospel spread during these years is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. How fast
I know, and they didn't have cars and planes and
Yep. We looked online, did a quick check on. I think the estimate was that Paul traveled about 15,000 miles
Wow.
on all of his journeys.
Well, 3,000 believed in one day.
Yeah.
In Antioch.
Yep.
Wasn't it also, I heard that one of the reasons Jesus came when he did was God waited till after the Romans had built all these roads so that the word could spread, because otherwise the methods to getting people to all these places wasn't there.
Yeah. The peace of Rome is essential for this, that Paul can travel throughout the whole civilized world easily, without having to have a passport and like that. He's a Roman citizen, and he can just go, and the whole world is under Rome's control, and he can travel freely. And before the Romans, something else of great significance happened that made the gospel message just speed throughout the empire. If you remember what happened around 300 BC before the Romans, it was Alexander the Great who conquered the world and made everybody speak Greek. So the whole world is now united by a language. And before that, the Babylonians scattered the Jews throughout the world. So God's people are everywhere with the scriptures everywhere. The Persians allowed the Jews to rebuild the temple and establish their synagogues. And then the Greeks make everyone speak Greek, and the Romans give us the roads, and God uses all his enemies to do his work for him. And when Jesus comes, He comes at just the right time, and when Paul arrives on the scene, the gospel is ready to go. It's an incredible account of how things work out.
I never thought of all that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's phenomenal. It's really that's why it's like we always Martin Luther said it one time. He says, even the devil is God's devil.
Mhm.
You know, it's like even the most evil forces are still God is allowing them to exist and to continue to do because they are fulfilling some purpose.
He uses them,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
what he did to Saul.
Yeah. And he uses them for his kingdom purposes.
Mhm.
And he is always in control. And that gives us great courage. So all that's happening here, it's chaos, but God is in complete control of it. And
Right.
God is the Lord is going to use these moments to further spread his good news and bring salvation to many more than otherwise would have happened. It's pretty impressive. All right, this will be your opportunity. But then he says about their bearing witness. He says something interesting, verse 14. Some instructions for them.
Think about it and decide how you're going to respond before you even get there.
No,
Don't. Yeah.
don't think about it.
Oh, don't think about it.
That's what's amazing.
Yeah,
He says, when
don't
you
think.
bear witness.
Excuse me. Don't think about it.
Yes.
You had a little dyslexia going there, Rob.
Well, you know
Don't-
what? It's funny because I understand that's what he says here, but in my mind, all kinds of witnessing opportunities I've already thought about.
Yes.
It's a different thing. You know. Anyway, yeah.
If we want
Yeah.
to go backwards in chapter 12, 11, it also talks about don't think about it, just
Yeah.
let the Holy Spirit lead you.
The Holy
Yeah.
Spirit will lead you. Now, again, he's not giving instructions to everybody at all time here. He's not telling us that we shouldn't prepare in different ways and just wing it and sling it. That's not what he's saying here.
Right.
He's saying
But
in these.
I'm
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry. I had to step away for a second so that I wouldn't disrupt the group.
Yep.
When it says when you bear witness, don't, what is that saying?
I'm about to finish it.
Oh, I'm
When you-
sorry.
When you bear witness, don't. We'll put it. Maybe I can reword it a little bit here. Don't worry about what you'll have to say. What
Right.
you say. Don't worry about it. You don't have to meditate about it. You don't have to prepare a speech here.
I'll give you the words.
Yes, in that moment, I will give you a mouth and wisdom. I'll give you words and wisdom, which none of your adversaries can withstand. And that's important to get that because can withstand. Remember, he's talking to his adversaries, his disciples here. What was their profession before they came, many of them?
Fisherman.
Fisherman.
They're fishermen. Jesus is a carpenter. They're not politicians. They're not wordsmiths. These guys they're working men. If you talk to fishermen, you don't get a sense that they're going to be running for Congress anytime soon, or that they're going to be giving great speeches. And these are working men. They know what they're doing. They're not out there trying to impress crowds. And for these guys like Peter and John to stand before highly educated men who have been trained in the academies, who have gone to debate clubs and speech classes, and who know how to, they will make a fool of anybody. You go in there and you're like, if you think that you can prepare for them, if you think that you can study and meditate and just say the right words and practice and you're going to thwart them, you are a fool. You know nothing. They're going to destroy you.
But we just saw how all of the Pharisees and the Sadducees, all of the trick questions they gave to Jesus, and he always came back with them in a way that they could only walk away.
Yeah.
That's because
And
he
to do that
knew
to
what
them.
they were saying. He
Yeah,
knew
and-
what they meant.
Have any of you ever had to testify in a jury or something before a court, and have the prosecuting the other attorney go after you? I mean, it's one of the most
awful.
one of the most awful experiences. And Christine had to do that one time where she had to testify in a case, and the attorney was just ruthless. And
Relentless.
just, I mean, slander, and it's outrageous. And he can make anybody look like a fool, look malicious and evil. What he did to some of the people that we knew so well, who were good friends, and made them tried to make them look like, if you didn't know them, you'd come away thinking they were just money grubbing scoundrels. But these are some of the best people we know. That's the power of these lawyers and what they can do, who are really skilled at it. They can turn the phrase, they can make you look the fool, and you're going to go against powerful people. And so don't worry about what you're going to say. There's nothing you can do to prepare for this. You need me to give you the words and the wisdom, and he does. And that's why, if you remember, the first time you see this is in Acts, I believe it's chapter 4, when Peter stands before the Sanhedrin. Do you remember that? And how did that go for them?
Not well.
Oh, no, it went really well, actually.
Oh, did?
They couldn't believe
Oh
the
no, I thought you
boldness.
meant it. I thought you meant it the other way around. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the boldness. They couldn't believe the boldness of Peter and John. They even said, and they were astonished because they were uneducated men. And it's there that Peter just confronts them, and he's like, there's no other name given to men by which we must be saved. This Jesus whom you killed, God has raised. And he just, unbelievable what he's able to do. That's the Holy Spirit. Only the Holy Spirit can give you that kind of wisdom and words, which is a good lesson for us too. I mean, when we think about our own opportunities to bear witness, really, it's not going to come down to us taking classes in rhetoric and learning how to debate. It's really, we need to pray and lean upon the Spirit to give us the opportunities and the right words when we bear witness as well. And none can withstand. Who's another one that they couldn't withstand? Another example in the book of Acts of someone who just blew them away, and they couldn't say a word, that they ended up screaming at him and blocking their ears and rushing him. They were so furious. Stephen in Acts chapter, was it 7, just blows them away with his defense. And they can't even say, all they can do is kill him, because they can't answer him.
And he's praying as they stone him to death.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Just amazing.
Is he
Amazing
praying
stuff.
for them?
He is.
Mm-hmm.
He prays, Lord, receive my spirit, do not hold this sin against them. And if you remember, Paul is the one sitting there watching their coats as they kill him. And God certainly, at least in Paul's case, rescued him answered Stephen's prayer. All right.
That whole thing was set up by Jesus with Paul.
Yeah.
He knew what the beginning from the end was. He made him who he was.
Absolutely. And it's neat to see how God's ways are so surprising. He's always in control, and the way that he intervenes when you think that all is lost, and then he turns it around. Like with Paul, it's like you got to feel like there's a sense in which, how can we deal with this guy? He is determined to exterminate us.
Mm-hmm.
And he's so zealous, we don't have a chance against this guy. And then suddenly that guy, it becomes your leader, becomes the leader of the movement, and takes it to another level. It's like, it's jujitsu moves left and right. He just does these judo moves. He just turns it against them. So,
You know, it always, whenever I think of Saul becoming Paul, I think of the fact that, you know, God says what he hates is lukewarm,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
And the thing with Paul was that he was so strong for God, he just had it wrong.
Right.
yeah.
And so it's like, okay, you're
Yeah.
this strong. I'm going to give it to you right. And he just, okay. And the moment he shows him how wrong he was, he just takes that same
Yeah.
strength and vigor and turns it the other way.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Did Paul start the churches in Philippians and all that?
yeah, he started those churches, the church of Philippi and Thessalonica, and all the churches in Macedonia. He started those churches. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, all right. So you'll be delivered up. Furthermore, this is more distressing. Verse 16.
You're delivered up even by parents and brothers and friends and relatives.
Yeah. Your
And
own
some of
family.
you will be put to death.
They'll snitch on you.
Yeah.
It sounds
have-
like 1984.
Yeah. Your own family will turn against you and have you put to death. Now, this is a real reality in the world today. Where do you see Christians being,
Muslims.
yeah, being put to death by their own family? Any Muslim who becomes a Christian is to be put to death if you're, yeah, it's a horrible thing, and Paul Biswa, one of our missionaries that he does a lot of work with Muslims and Hindus, he came and years ago he had brought, there was a young man in his church named Mansour, who was, I think he was from Bangladesh also, and a lot of Muslims there as well as Hindus. And he came from a Muslim family. His father was an imam. He had a brother, and when his brother became a Christian, he had to flee because his father was going to kill him. And so Mansour ended up going to find his brother, and he also became a Christian, and he basically had to flee from his own father, from his own family.
Oh my
There was
gosh.
a
Horrifying.
story here a few years ago where a Muslim father took 2 plastic bags and stuffed them down his girl's throat and suffocated them because they were becoming too Americanized.
So sick, huh?
So sick.
It is so sick, but it's this passion, and the thing is that they are good Muslims when they do these things. That's what Muslims do. That's the faith. That's what Allah teaches them in the Quran. That's why
The
that's how
Quran
you,
is terrible.
yeah, that's how you secure allegiance to Allah, is you make it a terrifying thing to abandon the faith, and the thing is it works. It's effective in keeping people in line. There's some who will still rebel, but most people,
You know how like some religions like a person is their God? Is a lot like God the Father in a sense, but not him?
Allah is he is not like God the Father at all. They in fact, the Muslims would say absolutely Allah is not a father.
Right.
He is not a father in any way. He is the one God, and we are here to serve him. We are his servants. We're not his children. We are his servants.
Oh.
So yeah, it's one God, but those that say, oh, Allah and God the Father are the same thing, I'm like, no,
My
no,
mother said that, and I'm like, no.
no. They've never, and the quick antidote for people to understand that is just read the Quran. Just read the book. Read what they say, and you'll get a sense of what you're dealing with here. And this is not at all the Christian God. Just because it's one God doesn't mean it's the same God as we worship.
Yeah, when you charge God with being a father in their eyes, you're saying that he is engaged in sexual relations like human beings.
Yeah.
That's how they pollute them.
What?
Yeah, their understanding of the Trinity is God the Father, Mary, and Jesus. That's their understanding of what the Trinity is.
Oy vey.
Yeah, it's messed up. So again, on the same token, I always stress, look, we're talking about Islam. We're not talking about Muslims. There are lots of Muslims out there, just like there are lots of Christians and lots of different people, and a lot of them are wonderful people. They're good neighbors, and a lot of them have no idea what Islam really teaches.
Would owning a Bible of an opposing religion be considered like an idol or something?
No. I don't know how they would say it, but for us, like I have a copy of the Quran. I have a copy of the Bhagavad Gita and some of these other. I have a copy of.
It's good to know those things.
Yeah, it's not something I treat as it's. I want to learn these things. I want to learn what we're dealing with. So, having a copy of a book does not mean that you agree with it or that you even adore it. So,
I think Chris was also saying if you're caught with the Bible and you're a Muslim.
oh, is that what you're asking?
Well, I was just asking in general, if I was to own a copy of the Quran, if that
Oh,
would be considered idolizing another
No,
religion,
no,
or
no, no,
because
not at all.
we worship the Bible, you know what I mean? So
Yeah. I mean, if you started reading the Quran in devotion the way that you read the
yeah.
Bible, that would be an issue.
Um,
But it wouldn't be having a copy is not a problem necessarily. Again, I don't recommend. Part of me recommends reading it, but another part of me says don't. It's the worst book ever. I mean, I just
Yeah,
reading
why bother
it's
with
not
that?
even a good read. It's one of the hardest. It's an exhausting book to read. There's nothing fun about it. There's nothing enjoyable about it. It's not. Yeah. It's really it's bad literature. Not only is it bad teaching, it's bad literature too. So but
Oh, really?
if you want to check it out and just learn a little bit about, it's good to know because, as you know, Islam's in the news a lot, and it's had a huge influence on in our country. I mean, whoever thought that like Mamdani, a Muslim, would become mayor of New York City, the
I
place where the
know.
terrorists took down the Twin Towers, and yet there he is. It's and there are what 2 billion Muslims in the world right now.
We
So
How
had a
many
fair amount of,
Christians are there?
what's that again?
Sorry,
Claudette?
Claudette.
we
I
had a fair amount of Muslims that came to the Catholic school that I was subbing at,
Mm,
and
yeah.
they came to mass.
Hmm.
It was very interesting.
Yeah.
One of the teachers was actually Muslim.
Yeah, and
wow.
it's some really different takes on it. Paul Biswa did a great session on years ago after 9/11. So we've known Paul for a long time. And after 9/11, he came and gave a seminar on understanding Islam that was phenomenal. It was really good. He really kind of laid out the core beliefs and how they understand things. Um, and there are different flavors of Islam also around the world. There's some that are certain areas of the world where they're much more political and we'd say radical in a sense, and others where they're much more moderate and more nominal even. Like the large, I think the largest Muslim country in the world is Indonesia.
mhm.
That's where the most Muslims are.
Yes.
But most of them are not. They're not radical like you see in Pakistan or Afghanistan or
Yeah, but
Iran.
their book tells them to do all these things, right?
Yeah, well, the book says one thing. The question is, what do their teachers say?
Oh,
And
like
that's the
the
thing is
scribes.
a lot of them don't speak Arabic, so they don't even know what's in the book. So they're going with what their teachers say. So it's an interesting thing. So
Okay, and that makes sense.
if you want to hear the guy that I recommend people listen to, if you want to, is David Wood on. There are two guys that I really like that you can find them on YouTube. That speak a lot on Islam and a deeper understanding of is David Wood and Raymond Ibrahim. Those are two guys that I've really enjoyed.
What's the second one's last name? David.
I'll type it up here. So it's David Wood. He's the guy that led Nabil Qureshi to faith. And then there's Raymond Ibrahim.
Oh,
He
okay.
does the history of the Crusades, which is really good. And then David Wood kind of just refutes. I mean, he's really incredible. So one of the things you'll see in a debate, he says, some Muslims say that when Jesus said, "I will send to you a helper," that there are Muslim teachers that are saying, "See, Jesus was prophesying about Muhammad, that Muhammad is the one who's going to teach you everything, right?" And so his response to them is, he says, "Well, let me get this. Let's assume that you're correct, that Jesus is saying that I will send to you a helper, that I will send to you Muhammad, right? Then, but you know who sent Muhammad? Well, that's Allah. So then, by your reasoning, Jesus is Allah. Is that what we want to say here? Do we really want to go there?" So he does that a lot with them, where he knows their religion pretty well. So he's somebody really interesting to consider. Well, anyway, Let's come back to this here. We got 12:24, so we'll come back to this again. We'll finish up this paragraph, and we've ended. I guess we ended at verse 16.
Thank you,
Uh,
Pastor. That was a good study.
Yeah. All right. Good discussion. Stop recording.